Hey folks, Quillykin here, and welcome to another episode of Let's Play Terra Invicta. We are Project Exodus, and we have a few exciting developments happening. First of all, we have finished researching the next drive that I want to try to play around with. That just happened. Also, the inertial confinement fusion reactor 6 is currently being researched because we finished the proton-proton fusion, and this does lead to the protium nova torch, which I think is our ultimate actual endgame. I think drive. I think this is going to have all the distance we want. It does take some exotics, which is always going to be tricky for us because we're going to be in a bit of an exotic budget, but I think ultimately we are going to well, we don't need to use this drive for the Nova Torch. Probably Nova Torch will, but it might be worth a little bit of investment. We're going to have to pick and choose a little bit carefully what we've got. But we're going to start designing our next set of ships, and since we don't need to purge everything, we might be content with letting the aliens having a certain amount of mining stations and letting them build big fleets just so that we can go and maybe try to boot them for the exotics. It's kind of a nutty idea. Let's go into the ship design thing. Now, I am very tempted to go immediately all the way up to the Titan class. And ideally, maybe building a fleet around, say, 5 Titans, which have the salvage drive, just to pick a number. One of them has the flag. Probably, unless we don't want the Titans on the... Unless the Titans should be on the front, in which case the flag could be in something that lingers a little further behind. I don't know. And I'm also wondering, like, what is our mix of lasers to other, lasers to siege type weapons, right? For the purpose of shooting down things that are flanking us versus killing big ships. Like we could do, for example, a pure laser ship, right? Let's say we give it some think, and especially, you know what, like the flag type Titan might want to have just more like self-defense kind of thing. So we could even make it an all laser affair. So if we look, so we may, I mean, that's a lot of exotics. I mean, that's pretty damn good. So we'd be comparing this, actually, let me sort alphabetically. That'll be better. So we'd be comparing these two with one another, right? One uses exotics, one doesn't. Okay, their range is the same. I don't know if some of the fall off is a little different. Yeah, the armor effectiveness is, armor is a little bit more effective, especially at longer range, like twice as effective against this, but it might be tolerable to save us exotics. Again, maybe we're willing to invest in exotics for the Titans, although we don't have a ton of exotics right now, so I'm not even sure we can build one. Anyway, let's take a look at the drives. So again, the Poseidon Torch is going to be a lot more efficient in certain ways, but we're going to try this Nova Lantern. And what we could do is we could compare and contrast the two. We're going to need some number of propellant tanks. I don't know how many. And then armor-wise, Titans are going to need, I don't know, 50 up front. 10, maybe we can save because these are very heavy. Maybe we can do that. It's a little vulnerable to flank. I don't know. Hull weapon-wise, I think this design, we're going to try an all-laser one. So I don't know that we need any point defense lasers. I still like the one big chunk of... Ooh, that doesn't leave much for this one. Maybe we do the medium laser and then a whole bunch of small ones. It could have a dedicated point defense. I'm not sure that's needed. One thing I definitely want to do is I want to explicitly make sure that this gun here is not on any sort of point defense. This gun is meant to just shoot big bads the whole time. Arguably, this one here, I could also go and insist that this is on attack mode. I haven't really played with like setting these modes too much, but I should. And maybe even these guys, maybe they should all be on defense. Like, they're never really going to do a good job of shooting down ships. Maybe they should always save their focus for shooting down incoming missiles and, well, anything that can be shot down, while this focuses on trying to shoot maybe some flankers while this shoots the big thing over here. We do have a lot of utility slots on the Titan, which is a little crazy. Oh, let's go back to the power plant. So if we sort by specific power, so inertial confinement level 5 is like a half a ton per gigawatt, which is amazing. It does take some exotics. I guess one of the questions might be, how much power do we need? Yeah, it's probably too much. I suspect what we have to do is go down to the tier 4 version over here to not use exotics. That battery, that radiator, and then, yeah, the utility modules. Like, should I throw in a heatsink? I don't usually do a heatsink. Do the radiators auto open and close as needed? Like, maybe it's worth throwing one of these in just to make it, even though these have a very low vulnerability, they still have some. Maybe one heatsink makes some sense. The Muon Spiker is for more pure speed. Well, let's consider it. Science lab, I think we can live without. I think we want a repair bay, and I think a salvage bay on the Titans if we're going to get there. And then we know one of... Ooh, we need... So again, the Hydron Trap. That's not a lot of exotics. And that gives considerably more... 35%. Yeah, this does give 50% boost to ship exhaust velocity. I think that's well worth the 0.1 exotics. You don't need magazines. Oh, you do need ECM and the targeting computer. Okay, that doesn't leave very much, because my idea with this one was to load it up with a bajillion advanced laser engines. Okay, the Spiker is just more speed. I think that can be dropped. Maybe we don't need the heatsink, because I kind of want to do this. Actually, I think what I want to do is we'll get the 3 over there, and then I think that was the repair module, right? Which is it required? Here's the thing. We're kind of going to be working on the defender role over here. I mean, it doesn't really matter what I choose for this, other than we do want to set the preferred combat engagement to something, but we don't need to worry about the engine configuration. And because this is really going to be about, let's boop things that are nearby, because this isn't going to have super duper long range. And so maybe it's always going to be within range for some repairs, and then we can just fit another laser module. So I think it's unrealistic for us to assume that we're going to be able to get to like 300 again, because it gets pretty expensive. Because mostly then you're using your fuel to move other fuel around. But what if we go back and design these for just sort of 100K operations? This can bounce around the inner planets perfectly fine. And actually, it can go and do possibly kind of a one-way trip style thing to some of the alien space stations. We'd probably need to bring some sort of mini colony ship with us to plop down something to do a resupply station so that we can come back. But it doesn't have the worst engagement envelope. But the combat acceleration at 1.6 G, combined with a decent amount of delta V, hopefully would be enough to close and maintain. So we did some higher combat acceleration ships before, but they didn't have enough delta V to sustain it. So this is one possibility. We should do, I think, a compare and contrast. If I do this one, which I guess we'll call... How do I want to order the thing? Maybe, you know what? Maybe, because then they'll be alphabetically in a list. Maybe I'll start with 100K. Titan. Oh, I have caps on. That explains why it was that. You know what? Lowercase k is fine. Titan. Laser. And no variants. I mean, it does have a salvage thing and no repair, so it's 1 of 5. I mean, maybe we'll say laser salve, so we know that when we're making our fleet, that if we hit 5 things with the salvage thing, we don't really need any more than that. Okay, so let's say I save this design. Now, it's a little funny if I go... So one thing that was clarified to me, if you try to do an upgrade and it's invalid refit, that doesn't mean you can't save it. It just saves it as its own standalone ship that you can't upgrade from one to the other. Like, in theory, what I wonder is if we can go... I don't know why it doesn't let me put the Poseidon drive. I think it's a glitch. Because it should... I mean, obviously, it's not going to be a legal refit, but if I'm accepting that it's not a legal refit, like, I'd like to copy the rest of this. I think I'm going to have to rebuild it. Annoyingly. So I'm just going to go and take a little screenshot of that. And then I have a reference up. So, because I can clear, but you know what? I think I've noticed if you clear, it still doesn't reset that properly. Look at that. I'm wondering, okay, if I go back to upgrade, so it loads this in. And then if I close and reopen the ship designer, it's still there. If I clear and close and reopen the ship designer, then it's fine. Yeah, that's a little frustrating. So as a comparison with the Poseidon Torch, and then this guy, and still this, and this, and then, yeah, I'm going to basically copy what I had. So we're going to use this gun, and then hull weapon, laser. I guess I did this one, and 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. I'm not going to change the modes quite yet. Add that. I think, what was I doing? 50, yeah, 50 armor, And then I think I did this and took a couple away, and then that. And maybe, this isn't what we want, but I'm not sure. So I hadn't put in the heatsink. And this can't use the muon spiker with this drive. So salvage bay, I had 4 of those engines. Oh, I also can't do the hydron trap, although it's a much more efficient thing. It's interesting, though. ECM. This didn't have the flag bridge. It does have that. I could throw in a vector thruster, but it's maybe not as reliant to turn around. And I guess this does give us the ability then, since there's so many things we can't do. We could put in another advanced laser engine. That's going to go up to 5, and then... So we should be able to hit 100 delta V over there. Our combat acceleration is much lower, though, and the whole thing is to try to catch. Now, I'm hoping that the other thing with 1.6 delta V... No, sorry, 1.6 G's of acceleration and 100 delta V, I hope is going to have enough go juice to actually catch something. So this design here, like, probably has fewer costs in some things, but is 144 fissiles, which we do have some of. Now, like, it's been adding up again, right? If we're not going crazy distances, maybe, and which would be annoying that we did go and research those other drives. I mean, but this is still possible. On the other hand, what we could do is still be like, okay, let's still go for 300K. Now, all of a sudden, this takes a lot more. So we only have enough fissiles to build about 20 of these, and that's not refueling. Now, these are the Titans. They're going to be pretty big and expensive. I mean, I guess what I can do is I can save the 300K Titan laser salve. I think it's fine. This screen is glitched, and I know it's one of the screens they're remaking. Okay, there, that's fine. And again, the class here doesn't matter other than engagement range, unless you're doing auto build. And yeah, right, you had a little bit of exotics, which is fine, basically nothing. We can compare the costs over here. So yeah, less of everything. A fair deal less of some of these, actually. But all those. Now, with these, we're going to want to pair them with something. And I think, realistically, I can't go and necessarily make a huge Titan fleet. Although, for the sake of argument, what happens if we do go Titan Defender? And this one here is the anti-capital ship thing. So it has for its nose weapon the most damaging non-exotic. There we go. So proper spinal siege coil over here, which is bigger than what we're using before, because this is the 4.1, the actual spinal siege one, which is pretty badass. And again, here we go with this lantern, we go that drive, that battery, that radiator, and then this armor. And then let's do the same sort of setup, armor-wise. Something like this. And then for our hull weapons, what we could do, since we're probably not putting the laser engines on here, like we could go and put a magnetic, say this, well, let me sort by damage. I should probably obsolete some of these, but sort by damage. So that takes exotics. This one here, admittedly not very many exotics. I mean, that is cheap and might be worthwhile. So we could use a coil gun battery to try to shoot down flanking ships. Now, I think these are a little bit more evadable, but they don't have the range fall off. So they'll still do their full damage at 750 kilometers, assuming they do, in fact, hit. We don't have to worry about magazines. These things have insane loads. Like, we could do that and then probably still have lasers. In fact, we might even include one dedicated actual point phaser turret. But then, yeah, we go and put in 3 of those, and these things I would want on full defensive mode. Your only job is to shoot down stuff. And then these 2 are on focus attack mode, because they can't be used defensively. So we do something like that. And then for utility modules, and this is still the Titan, could do the move on, I don't know. Could do the repair, but I don't know. Salvage bay, hydron trap, except the cost there a little bit, and then the ECM and the targeting computer, and probably the salvage module. Did I pass it? Already put it on. Okay. And then what becomes kind of interesting? Maybe a vector thruster so that we can turn more. What's our turn rate? 0.17. So I mean, that is basically doubling the turn. I mean, not quite, but almost doubling our turn rate, which might be important to keep our big gun faced. I don't know what the turn rate of my other ships are and how this compares to various things, but yeah, we might need to be able to turn to face this thing. And so I've never used the vector thrusters, but now might be time. Or it might be that this is so slow and ponderous that you don't really see the difference anyway. Something around there. In a second. I mean, we could still consider. We could consider one laser booster still. Like, is it worth it? Maybe. It adds a flat amount, but we could go and put the repair bay. And I mean, obviously we can put the flag in here if we wanted. But let's say we're designing a non-flag one. So this becomes. I pull back over here. This is a 100K Titan siege salve, right? So save this. By the way, this whole episode might just be ship designing with no unpausing, as we took a look at these classes. I'm also curious a little bit about the costs. Yeah, we're spending a little bit more exotics, but I think on good stuff. Otherwise, the material cost is basically the same. This the siege one is a little bit more. It's worth noting, yeah, the out-of-combat acceleration is like, well, the acceleration in general is just wildly different. And like the weights are different here. So that 300, again, different type of thing. Longer range, but not as good as catching. And we're really going to have to figure out what we want. So we could always design a 300K variant of this. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to come back in here. And we're going to say, okay, what else we've got? Well, what about if we went into the Lancer and maybe still the Dreadnought? But let's say we were looking at kind of a Lancer kind of idea here. And again, the faster version. So we'll do that. Throw in a few just dummy ones of those. Yeah. You. And then, oh, we're still at adamantine armor. We are correct, right? This is, yeah, okay. That is our lightest armor per ton. And maybe we can go a little lighter armored on this one. I might still do 10 in the rear, but I'll do only 7 on the flanks and only 40 up front as opposed to 50. And then again, we could build this as a siege thing. It doesn't have a lot of space for hull weapons, so it feels way less appealing as a laser boat. So I think, I mean, the Lancer really is designed to just have big giant nose weapon, and we could have a big giant laser weapon, but I think big giant nose weapon really lends itself to, we do the siege coiler, and in this case, this might be another really, really good example of let's just throw in a coil over here and then a vanilla point defense laser turret because it's not going to be good at that kind of defense. And then under utility module, this could be another candidate for the salvage bays, right? We might just end up a couple of variants, and ultimately we want 5 ships in our fleets that have salvage bays to get maximum exotics. It's going to be key. But I don't need the laser engine. Probably we do the Hydron trap again because we get a lot of value. I don't think it needs a magazine. We know we need ECM. We know we need the targeting computer. Turn rate, yeah. We might need, hell, we might want, oh, we can only put 1 vector thruster. Okay, well, that answers that question. And then, yeah, what do we do with the rest? Unless this is also a good candidate for the salvage module. We'd have to compare, because we might still use the Dreadnoughts as sort of a massive laser boat, right? The laser show. In which case, these might be better candidates to be the extra. I mean, I guess I could throw in a Mu-1 Spiker for just a little bit more base speed. Although, this is only really going to matter, like, based on fleet speeds. It could help a little bit with in-combat maneuvering, but I don't think so. So it does make me think that it might be a good candidate for that. The laser engine would still boost our point defense, but it doesn't seem very useful. I think we can all agree. Yeah, and again, a natural candidate for a flag bridge over here, but I guess I could put in a heat sink. At this point, an extra, say, like either one that I go, the tonnage doesn't really matter, and it could keep the radiators cooled in. Or the repair bay, which does help in combat. You know, maybe we just do this. So this becomes, oh, we need to tune a few things. We need to get up to our, there you go, 100K. So this becomes the 100K Lancer siege salvager design. Right, so if we save that and take a look at our ships again. It's funny, this Lancer is actually heavier than one of these Titans. I mean, they're very similar class. Actually, the material cost is basically the same too. Huh. And its paper combat value is very low. It really doesn't rate those siege coils very high. Okay, maybe we don't bother with the Lancer then. Do we just go and only build the Titans? In which case, I wonder what we end up wanting more of. The laser boats, which have, like, they'll have great defense against smaller ships. I guess, yeah, how much big gun critical mass do we need? And that's a question I'm not sure of, because whichever one of these we ultimately want less of might be the best for the salvage variant. Well, you know what? The laser one over here, what we'd rather than a salvage bay, because he can use the utility slots to just load on more advanced laser engines. Yeah, with no salve. So this becomes, oh, it didn't get renamed. This is, oh yeah, because it gets the name there. It's just so confusing, this UI. I'm happy they're remaking it. This is the 100K Delta V. Ooh, save a propellant can. 100K Delta V Titan laser. No flag, no salvage. So save design. So that makes me think. Let me go, and I'm gonna always obsolete them. It's fine as long as I don't go and delete these designs. Obsolete you. I might keep the little mini mining colonizer as a little bit of a reference. The troop cruiser. Yeah, I'll just obsolete. We can always undo it later. I'm not going to bear with this 100K, this 300K. If we're going to do a longer range set of ships, it's going to be with a different class of engines. This is just to rebuild the defensive fleet that can go and poke some stations as well. And then, so we don't want the laser salvage class. There we go. And then, oh, this Lancer we also don't need. So if we built 5 of these, and I think one of these maybe is a good candidate for becoming our flagship, unless we do a flagship as a completely different thing. I'm wondering, is the flagship best as a dreadnought? The Titan only has 6 hull hardpoints. The dreadnought has a lot more. It can be ultra defensive, because it can be all about small lasers. In fact, we could even, instead of a big nose weapon, we could have a few small nose weapons. Heck, we could even go smaller. We could go like, we could go battleship. Because ultimately, we can put the same amount of armor on there. Like, if the slots, like, if we went battleship, for example, right? And its nose is just a couple of those. I'm wondering if it's, with the flagship, if it might be worth going for the, for an exotics build. Because keeping it alive might feel a little bit more important. And then we could also cram more armor in there if it's a little bit lighter and still hit some of our numbers. I don't think it's going to be required. Hull weapons, I think might be all the small lasers with the ability to shoot down any nonsense that's coming over here. I wonder if I want to change these modes. Guardian isn't... We could set them to be purely defensive. So that... I know, I might leave it here. But, okay. Utility modules. Where are we looking for? Over here. So... It's getting the flag bridge. Probably ECM. Probably target computer, although... Yeah, and then just a couple... Could go Hydron Trap over here, but it's light enough that it might be okay. Like, we could just put a little bit extra fuel. I'm just wondering about... Why can't I find it? Advanced Laser Engine. A couple of those. Do we even have the upgrade that allows our ECM to work against alien stuff? Like, am I crazy? Maybe I don't even need the ECM on here. Now, I might, like, explicitly over-armor this guy. And do you have a role? Because maybe I don't want you in the main group. Like, I could class you as, like, a transport, for example. In which case, you'd start battle further back. Where the only thing you're worried about is flankers, and you've got some decent stuff there. And, you know, if we go and actually go and be a little crazy on these over here, that's an interesting idea. So we could call this the 100K Battleship Laser Flag. That's a very interesting idea in my head. I mean, the tonnage is right there. The cost is very similar. It does have a little bit more armor. I wonder, I could take an engine off of this. Because right now it's going faster than these others. It's a crazy idea, but it might just work. If I take an engine off... Just wondering, if I take 2 off... Ooh, there it is. We can still have the 1.6G combat acceleration, still hit this, save some fuel. I might accept the Block 2 name on this one. Hide that one. Yeah, so our out-of-combat acceleration is going to be limited to this 26, but, you know, probably consider that fine. The in-combat is probably a little lower, right? Because we're not seeing all the, like, all the figures, but as sort of a goal. Again, we're targeting 100, and those numbers will vary. We're targeting about 1.6 because it just happened that way. And it is definitely cheaper. Okay, I might be fine with this. Now, let's say, yeah, ship construction around Mercury. Because I think Earth is still getting some rebuild, and Mercury's got two shipyards, and, you know, most is closest kind of thing, and then we can figure out where we're going from there. So we want 1 laser flag, and we want 5 of the siege ones with the salvage modules, and then we want just infinite laser ones? Maybe. I mean, they can still kill big things. Obviously, the siege ones are the best for it. Am I going to be able to start one at every single one of these? And again, I can do a non-salvage version of the siege ones as well. Holy crap. Just look at this. Exactly. I could not queue another one right now with the amount of metal we've got. The lasers do eat 0.1 exotics, but I think that's a perfectly fine cost over here. I mean, that's because they do have the Delta V module. I suppose that could be ripped out for another advanced laser engine. Ugh. Huh. That is kind of interesting to consider. But I think we're gonna go with this. Again, I'm not happy about the lack of range. Although, this can still exist for the remainder of the game as an interplanet defense fleet. Even if we end up making, like, a long-range fleet, then it'd be great to have everything together, but I think in the end we do need to keep some fleets around. In fact, I've been generating some exofighters over here just to make sure that no one snipes my, like, weak bases right now with nothing, because we have no fleet defending here at all. Echo 163 is just another little mini-miner. Rename it there, and of course the Jupiter colony ship from way back when that's just on escape velocity and will be forever. Does it have a date that it's going to depart? Yeah, 2055 it'll finally be removed from our listing. Anyway, 30 minutes of ship design is fun. I don't know about you guys, but that is really fun. I've unified a bunch of Europe. I think Portugal is still, yeah, hasn't been unified yet, but I'm doing it. We were getting targeted. There's people had raised in Turkey had raised us to like a full like 10.0 civil war, and I was like, oh, there's probably a coup coming. So I was like, let's just go ahead and unify that, and it'll make the management over here easier. So we have a lot of control point left, and I think I might start taking some cracks at China, or just generally moving, and maybe specifically looking to target anything controlled by the Protectorate and the servants. Like, it might be annoying to keep maintaining, though. We'd really want to rush towards some sort of unification somewhere, so we're not maintaining a bunch of different locations that have low economies and therefore are very vulnerable to attack, which is what makes China considerably more appealing. Plus, it's got nukes, plus it's got army. I mean, we're not particularly friends with the resistance, but we're not in open war with them, so maybe that's fine. But we could start looking at what might be involved over there. But I think this is the totality of today's episode. We are building a crap ton of, well, Titans. We are a full Titan crew at this point. Sure, seems fun. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.